Welcome to another episode of Pilots Say What, where we hear what pilots have to say. And today we are sitting down with Zach. Obviously, my name is Zach as well. I'm your host from week to week here on this podcast. And today, since we are talking to another Zach, he is a flight instructor at a school, but he's also kind of moving on with his career a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. And before we get too much into all the details, I'd like for you to briefly introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Yeah. My name is Zach Davis. I've been a flight instructor here at Thrust for almost a year now. Just got hired last August. Started out as line instructor, mostly did multi-engine instruction going through. Recently, as of a few days ago, making the transition to assistant chief. So there's a lot of new learning that's being involved with that, but I'm enjoying it so far.
What's something that people should know about you in order to understand your viewpoint and the things you might say?
I have a lot of passion for what I'm doing, right? I came into this starting September 23 is when I started learning how to fly. First generation pilot in my family, nobody flew. We knew people that did. So it was something I kind of never really been involved with, but I've loved every second of it. I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah. So did you start without really knowing much, and then you kind of jumped into it and
I,
get your
s-
feet wet?
I started with a half-hour discovery flight, Parker County out in Weatherford, and I believe I started at Thrust about 2 weeks later. Just jumped right into
Just like that. And then
it.
was it? Did you expect it to be hard, and then it was harder, or what was your expectation?
I expected it to be pretty difficult.
Mhm.
I think one of the things I didn't really know going into was just how much ground knowledge and studying there is.
Yeah.
So I was a little taken aback by that, but
Yeah.
put myself forward to it and really worked hard at it.
I think a lot of people come here and they think it's not going to be like a lot of the book work, and it still is. But I think the difference is, well, I guess you would be able to say, but I imagine the difference is that there's a lot of practical application behind it.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a lot of, I mean, weather, right? That was one of the hardest things I had grasping back when I was studying for my private. But now, real world, right? You see how it all forms and everything building up, and helps aid in that go no go decision that you make every day.
Right, a lot of the things you learn and study and talk about kind of like accumulating
Hmm.
compound, and then it starts to feel more like a cohesive thing you
Oh
understand,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Was there an alternative for something that you were going to do instead of going into flight training?
Yeah. So originally, I wanted to be a game warden here in Texas. That's what I went to school for. I have my bachelor's in wildlife sustainability and minor in criminal justice. So that's what I wanted to do for the longest time,
Yeah.
and then ended up making the switch.
And you're like, you know what? I'm gonna try this out. What was that peak? What peaked you to really make a move to go get a discovery flight?
So I finished my degree. It was August 23. So I was online for the last 3 months. It's May. Finished my degree, and then I was waiting for the academies. They only happen once a year.
Hmm.
So I was waiting for all that stuff, and I was working in insurance. Which,
Yeah, not the
yeah,
vibe.
it wasn't great.
Yeah.
And then just decided to take a discovery flight, change something up, and I loved it. I mean, the instructor that I went with, he told me, he was like, half the time you can tell if this is what you love and want to do the rest of your life by the time you're even airborne and finish with the climb out, and that's exactly how it went.
So you're an instructor now, and you recently are have like committed to taking on an assistant chief role here at Thrust Flight, right?
Yep.
When you first started flying as a student pilot, did you kind of were you aware already that at some point you're going to probably become an instructor?
That was the plan, yeah. At that point, right, I didn't really know a whole lot of what happened after, right?
Yeah.
But I knew CFI was something that was probably going to do and something I wanted to do, right?
Hmm.
Something I love,
Yeah.
so I enjoy it a lot. Yeah.
That makes sense. And then so you get to the point where you start becoming a CFI, and that's its own transition, right? I mean,
Mhm.
is there anything that that you realized once you became a CFI?
Day one, right, the first flight from the right seat, it's like whoa, right? Like the biggest feeling of imposter syndrome, right? I'm really sitting here in the right seat working as a flight instructor,
Right.
and that goes away, but it still needs to stay there, right, for the safety aspect of it.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, there's so much going on, right? It's kind of task management. So we're instructing, right? But
Yeah.
while we're instructing, we're also monitoring, making sure everything's going okay. We're checking our MFD, checking for traffic. We're looking outside for traffic. We're also planning what's next,
Right.
and how the flight's going to go, kind of keeping us in a certain area we want to go to. So it definitely takes a little while to get used to doing all of those things at once.
And about how much time passed between when you started flying I guess at your private, and then becoming an instructor. About how much time took place? Did it
It
take?
was 9, 10 months,
Nine,
about
ten
10
months.
months, I believe.
Now though, you're in a role where you'll probably be working with more instructors and kind of coordinating on what's going to be best for the students. Can you talk to me a little bit about maybe why you've taken on an assistant chief role and what you think that may look like?
Mhm. So yeah, so I started right thrust 0 time. I had a great time going through the program. No complaints at all for me. I loved it. So that's a lot of my motivation for wanting to be an instructor here.
Hmm.
As far as the transition to assistant chief, a lot of that comes from just wanting to have like a more hands-on role with everything.
Hmm.
I've had a kind of different path going through. So mostly, I've done mostly multi-instruction.
Hmm.
I kind of started out there, so that's the bulk of what I've done.
Hmm.
So it allowed me to get a more hands-on and kind of a better feel for what's going on as a whole, and also come into contact with a lot more students from a lot of different ratings,
Mm.
and be able to talk to them and help them.
Mm. That's like a broad approach that you can have with the
Hmm.
student, right? So, I think you said you're going to be moving to our Conroe
Yep.
location, to be the assistant chief over there. Uh, so how do you feel about the move?
It'll be a change for sure.
Yeah.
I'll be one of 3 assistant chiefs down there. Yeah,
Mhm.
one of 3. It'll be interesting. It's gonna happen quick. It's happening, I believe, like 9, 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's moving pretty quick.
yeah, kind of trying to get everything in order as far as housing and all the move down there. All that stuff has been a little interesting.
Where are you from originally? Are you from the DFW?
So no. So originally, I grew up in a smaller town, Brownwood. It's about 3 hours southwest of DFW.
Okay.
Lived there till middle school, and then I lived in Austin for 10 years.
I'm sure though you've met a lot of our students who are also from different places that
Mhm.
aren't from the DFW or even from the state. Uh, Do you think that moving is like if someone were thinking about starting flight training or having a career in aviation, do you think that relocating is something they should probably be considering?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Right. Depends on the school, right? Thrust was perfect match for me, right? I was
right.
more than happy to make that move.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
And it doesn't seem like a small decision. Starting flight training, starting a career in aviation isn't a small decision. I think that's obvious. And the more attainable we like are attempting to make it seem, like it is more attainable than ever before. It doesn't mean it's easy though. And I'm pointing that out one more time on this episode because if you really want something, if relocating is the thing that's you're allowing to stop you, well then that's an indicator of how many other things you might allow to
Hmm.
stop you. I guess
Yeah.
I like to point that out because it's a nationwide sort of career, in my opinion. It's not like something you should think about probably staying in one location for. And not that you can't. I'm just saying you're willing to grow and you're moving locations once more
Mhm.
for an opportunity. So now that you're becoming an assistant chief, your goal at some point is to get to the airlines.
I'd love to fly for American or United. Those are kind of the two I always wanted to fly for.
Yeah.
They're a little different in their own aspects.
Mhm.
Have different bases. As far as location wise, I would love to end up in Florida. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like Florida. Florida's
yeah.
pretty
I actually
cool.
just got back. I was on vacation last week.
Oh yeah.
We spent 4 or 5 days over in Orlando, and I loved it.
Yeah,
It's,
how likely do you think that may be for you, or when do you think you can end up in Florida as a flying in the airlines?
it depends. It
I know
depends
it's a
on.
little further ahead,
Yeah, it
but
also depends on regionals, what bases you get assigned.
Mhm,
As far as bases, that kind of goes off seniority as well. So
mhm.
most junior guys are going to start at the most junior bases, most likely, and then as you build the seniority, you're able to bid for a better base. So a few years.
Do you have a foot in the door anywhere?
I don't, so I'm not.
Gotcha.
I'm not a cadet anywhere. So I
Okay.
don't have anything moving forward just yet.
Yeah.
I'm getting stuff out there for programs, and I'm not really at the hours yet to start throwing out
You're
applications
right,
to
right.
regionals. I'm only about 750, so about halfway.
How long does it typically take? Like, what should someone be expecting if they're thinking about starting flight training and wanting to get to a career in the airlines? What can someone think about?
So to start with, right, I always tell everybody take a discovery flight,
Mhm.
right? Find out if this is actually
Yeah,
what you want to do,
yeah,
right? From there, it's picking the school,
yeah,
right? What's gonna fit your needs? And Thrust is a great school for that, right? We've got a
yeah.
little bit of everything here.
Mhm,
Great school, right?
mhm,
I had no complaints going through. I had an amazing time.
yeah,
I had an amazing time as an instructor.
yeah.
But as far as the entire journey, right? It's
Right.
not like you said. It's not going to happen overnight.
Mhm,
Something you're gonna have to put a lot of work towards. Starting hitting the books early, right? Getting those writtens done. That's a big hold up sometimes. So
Right, right.
get those writtens knocked out. Get on the study, and the faster you can get through learning and studying for the ground knowledge, it's
Mhm.
only going to accelerate, right? Promise you, everybody here wants to fly,
Uh-huh.
but getting that ground knowledge and up to par for ACS standards is
Right.
only going to allow you to accelerate that much more and fly that much more to get everything through.
Is there like an expectation for how long it takes to get hours as a CFI? And I know that varies a lot, but is there like,
It's going to vary depending on the school and depending on the time of year, right? Here at Thrust, we fly a really good amount as flight instructors. Um, Now, certain other schools, right, they may not fly as much, maybe lower hours. I know for a while I was averaging about 90 to 100 hours a month,
right.
which is really good.
Yeah.
It slows down for certain times of the year, though, right? Summer or for winter, it got really cold, had a lot of low overcast ceilings, really slowed down at that point. Now we're coming up on summer, right? Have really good weather. We're going to be flying like crazy.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to that.
Right. It sounds like it's kind of hard to put like too much expectation on what's going to happen
Mhm.
in the future and have and tie yourself to that. And almost for me, it sounds like not a good idea to tie yourself to too much of a timeline expectation. Doesn't mean you can't set goals,
Mhm.
but I think it's about putting one foot in front of another. It
Oh
seems
yeah,
like,
it's
yeah,
a one step at a time
yeah,
kind of thing,
exactly.
right?
So if you did a lot of training in multi,
Mhm.
is there something that you like about multi or that you think you excel at?
I love multi. I love flying that airplane.
Yeah.
My biggest thing, right? We go through all our single engine training. We practice engine failures, and it's all simulated, right?
Right.
Um, Take that, move into the multi. Right now, we're taking somebody, we're actually shutting down an engine, right? And seeing somebody go from whoa, the first time it happens, right,
Right.
to teaching them, right, it's still an airplane, still flies like an airplane, just a horribly mistrimmed airplane, and getting them comfortable enough with it to fly and go out and fly by themselves in that scenario, right? Because
Hmm.
I mean, I'll say it, a lot of multi-engine training itself is learning how to fly it with one engine, right?
Mm.
So that's a big learning curve. It's something I enjoy doing because I know the first time I was flying and a mixture got pulled on me, shut down an engine. I was like, whoa, and it kind of freaks me out for a second. But the more you do it, right, there's technique involved. But once you get that technique down, it's ingrained in your head. You get the feel for it. Um, it becomes so much easier. And my biggest thing I always tell everybody: still an airplane. It flies like an airplane. Responds to inputs on the controls. Right? It's
Right.
just horribly mistrimmed.
Yeah, I gotcha. Horribly
Yeah.
mistrimmed. And then do you and for including myself, for anyone who's listening, what can you describe what it's like for it to be mistrimmed though? Like what kind of effects does that have for you to sit there and have to adjust to?
So trim, right, is what we call poor man's autopilot. It's like the old layman saying for it. Essentially, it's a secondary flight control.
Mm.
We use it to aid in control or the control inputs that we have to put in, right?
Mhm.
So basically, it allows us to not have to sit here and really pull on the yoke or the rudders to do one thing or another, right?
Right.
So with multi-engine, right, we have asymmetrical thrust
Mhm.
when engine goes inoperative. So we have an airplane, right? Left engine, say the left engine's inoperative, the right engine's operative,
Okay.
right? We're having a lot of thrust being created here on the right engine, but none over on the left. So it's going to want to yaw the airplane to the left.
Right.
So that's where the horribly mistrimmed part comes out in, right?
Gotcha.
So you're just going to have to use a lot of rudder to maintain directional control to counteract that asymmetrical thrust.
Gotcha. Is that what are some common mistakes there when someone's first experiencing the fact that it's trying to you said y'all, right?
Mm.
What is how do people react and what are some of the mistakes and misunderstandings people typically have when they first experience that?
Two things that come to mind is A, not enough rudder. It's a lot
Always,
of
right?
rudder, right?
Yeah.
Always rudder.
Okay.
So generally more rudder. The second thing I always see is as soon as it happens, right? So as soon as the engine's failed, right? There's gonna be
Mhm.
a lot of yaw being created, and it's
Okay.
rudder to fix that. One thing I see a lot is everybody it's aileron into it. So they try to fix it with aileron, so the roll component of it,
Right.
when in fact the one or what's really needed is rudder, so the yaw component of it, the side to side.
Right.
There is aileron input that needs to be put in, right? But they're trying to fix it instantly with aileron instead of rudder.
Right. Instinctually still is that.
Instinctually,
Yeah, it's the same question for both of those things you just said. First of all, we always hear more rudder, and every almost like in many scenarios, right? a more right rudder, or what is it that people aren't getting that they do get when they understand how much rudder to put in there? Because like there's we hear that so often. There's has to be a common misunderstanding under there. Like what
Mhm.
is that? Do you think?
Really, it's just for me. I think it's a feel, getting used to how much rudder you really need, right?
Uh-huh.
Single engine starting out, I can tell you the first time I took off, like I didn't know anything about the turning tendencies of the airplane, so I didn't know that hey, we need right rudder to counteract those turning tendencies, to keep
Uh-huh.
me on the center line, and then keep me coordinated as I climb out.
Do you think people are trying to be cautious by not putting more rudder in? They're like, let me
Maybe
ease into it.
not necessarily cautious, just aren't fully aware of,
Mm.
or maybe a little bit timid of putting the input on the airplane.
Hmm. I
That's what
think
I can
you're
say.
right because you can't be technically too cautious. Isn't probably something that you can be in a
Yeah.
plane, I guess.
Oh no.
Um,
Oh yeah. No, you're right.
I guess to put it that way, but that timidness, that makes sense. I can imagine what that's like. I mean, all I've done is a discovery flight,
Mhm.
but I'm like, wow, like it's weird to think about the omnidirectional control you have,
Mhm.
and omni including roll,
Yeah.
right? So that's wow, like that's a whole nother factor. Um, you mentioned the second point that people tend to forget or not understand, and it's the instinct to want to use your
Mhm.
aileron. Do you think that's coming from like a car? Do you think it's
Yeah,
that
I could
same
see it.
instinct?
I could see it.
Yeah, and I don't want to tie it to that automatically, but are there people who maybe have like kind of already nullified that incorrect instinct by the time they've gotten to multi, or is that
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
yeah? What do you think that difference is?
You're used to, especially on the ground, you're used to using your feet instead of turning,
Uh-huh.
or using your feet to turn instead of using the aileron to turn.
Mm,
I mean, it never goes away. I still catch myself sometimes. I'm turning off the runway and I'm using the rudder to turn, but instinctually I'll turn the yoke a little bit.
right, right.
It still happens, right? It's
Because I
still
mean,
in
you're
the
driving every day,
yeah,
yeah. So
exactly. It's always going to be there, right? It's just a habit you got to break, right?
mhm,
Airplane's very different from a car. So,
absolutely,
but we've driven cars our entire lives, right?
right.
So it's just getting used to, hey, we're on the ground, right? We're gonna turn the airplane with the rudder,
Hmm.
right? Instead of the yoke, like the steering wheel of the car.
Right, right. I can imagine chair flying being a big part of that.
Oh yeah.
Really like getting down your instincts in like your thought processes and your workflows. Um, do you? I guess one thing I wanted to ask about there was, oh, yeah, it comes down to experience. It sounds like maybe people who really put their brain into the application of flying a plane more often tend to kind of get the technique down because technique is a difficult thing. Technique is very like repetition
Mhm.
based. What is something that you think helps people with their technique over time?
Chair flying, like you
Yeah.
just
Okay.
mentioned, right?
That was only my theory.
I'm
So.
a huge proponent of chair flying, especially when it comes to multi-engine flying.
Mhm.
Having flows and everything memorized. I know I've had was talking to a double S student we had recently. It had been like a couple days since he was flown, and I just kind of checked in, asked how things were going. He sent me a picture from home. There's a big group of thrust students, and they have a big old flight simulator set up at home. And he's like, "We're still working." Like, that's awesome to see. Like,
That is
that's
really awesome.
um, gonna help a lot, right?
Would you say that the fact that there is a technique to what we do here, and I say we just because I'm a part of the company, but pilots here, do you think the fact that technique is a big part of flying is also why it's so attractive to a lot of people who do it?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that attracts me, right? I love what I do, right?
Right.
Every day we go out and fly, something's different, right?
Right.
It's never going to be the same thing every day, even though we're training a lot of the same things the same day or over and over on different days.
Right.
No day of flight instruction or flying is going to be the exact same, right?
Yeah.
So there's always some change, there's always some obstacles to overcome. Students are going to have different difficulties as they're going through, right? They're going to struggle with different things.
Hmm.
And so it's the challenge of overcoming that and helping them to overcome that obstacle.
I feel as if I see like some similarities between most pilots, um, and there's a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of them. We could talk about. Some are probably funny, but more so the way they like to apply themselves. Everyone tells me that they like that every day is not the same. They like that they're not at a desk and at a
Yeah.
cubicle. They like that there's some nuance to everything. They like the feeling of flying itself. I think for many people who go through high school and then even through college, and can feel like I don't really know what the point of all this is. I'm just participating because I'm
Mhm.
supposed to. It seems like flying is one of those things that's kind of like Oh, okay, yeah, this makes sense, but that didn't.
Oh yeah.
Is that does do you see that? I mean, do you feel that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
The reason I want to bring that up is if there's anyone who's in college or in school and is thinking like, do I really want to go this route? And am I only going this route because I feel like I'm supposed to? I feel like a lot of people get a lot of clarity about that question when they begin flying. Maybe it's something else. I don't know, but I'm saying flying is an example of something that can be another option. So if you're watching this, you're probably interested in flying, and if you're not flying yet, like you said earlier, you took a discovery flight, and 2 weeks later, you started your
Oh yeah.
training because that's all you really needed to
Yeah,
know.
that's all I needed.
Yeah, exactly. So, call up your local flight school. Google it, ChatGPT it, whatever is gonna help you find the most local flight school that you can get to, and ask about a discovery flight and see if there's something there for you to try it out. Sometimes there's a charge involved. Maybe sometimes there's not. I don't know. It depends who you talk to. Um, if you're near Thrust or you like Thrust or you just want to try it out with Thrust, we have a link in the description so you can try it out as well. Um, no harm done if you don't like it. Maybe you won't need to watch so much YouTube video about it anymore. But I just wanted to mention that we have that available as well. Um, so now that you're going to be moving into your assistant chief role, do you think that this is what do you think you're going to get out of it yourself? I know that you kind of don't really know exactly what all it's going to look like, but do you have an idea of like, oh, this is going to help me with X, Y, and Z moving into my career?
Yeah, yeah, so it's all brand new, right? I've
Right.
been doing it for like 3 days now, so
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. For career wise, yeah.
Yeah.
It looks great, right? It's another certification.
Hmm.
There is a check ride involved with it with the FAA.
Hmm.
Something that I'm already starting to study for.
Yeah.
Stuff I haven't looked at in a little bit.
Can you tell me about the process
Yeah.
that's required by the FAA for you to be able to be labeled as a some sort of chief
Mhm.
instructor?
Yeah, so right now, right, I'm
Mhm.
moving into the assistant chief role here at Thrust. It's all outlined in Part 141 of the FARM, but basically there is a check ride with the FAA, right? It's
Right.
ground and flight that you need to do with them. Start to be eligible, right? You have to have 500 hours of PIC, right?
Mhm.
As or yeah, 500 hours of PIC to be put. I believe it's the private and instrument course.
Right.
So once you have that, be eligible for it. The ground itself is going to talk about fundamentals of instructions, the
Yeah.
FOIs. It'll be 141 regulations and documents with our school, right? Like our SPP, safety practices and procedures, course guides, hour minimums for everything.
What is it about being a chief that you were attracted to though? Like, is it just the idea that hey, I can evolve in my career, or is there something that you saw in other chiefs?
So we have a great team
Mhm.
of our chiefs and assistant chiefs, right?
Right.
Um, Something I wanted to be a part of for a
Yeah.
while, right? I interviewed twice for it, got it this time.
Okay. Cool.
But we have a great team, a lot of good people, doing a lot of good things, right? Very hands-on with our students, very interactive, which I really liked. It was very attractive. Want to be a part of that and be able to really, like I said earlier, right, have more hands-on, be able to give back what I was given to more students, right? Um, Not just be so strictly confined with multi, or but also be able to be more involved with all the ratings, meet more students from all the different ratings, be able to be more interactive with them.
You could have just kept being a line instructor, and kind of achieved your goal of reaching a certain number of hours and moving on in your career by being a line instructor, right? Why not do that?
I want to keep doing things, keep achieving things.
Mm,
Um, like the assistant chiefs is great. Also, there's other ratings I want to get,
mm.
other endorsements I don't have that I want to get. So I just want to keep pushing myself forward and getting those things, not really sitting idle.
That's something that like I like to see in people, and I guess when I'm like looking to like learn from them, I like to see that they wanted to learn, right?
Hmm.
They wanted to grow and push themselves. Do you see people kind of hit plateaus, and what's your advice for people who feel like they've hit a plateau?
Yeah, absolutely. I see it. I went through a couple of them myself. Um, Biggest advice for plateaus like that, right? We're in accelerated school. Take a breath if you need to, right?
Right.
I can tell you one of my biggest like things through my training with that. When I was doing my MEI training here with Thrust, I was getting ready for my check ride. I had my last flight before the check ride. It was rough, right?
Yeah.
It was one of the worst flights I've ever had.
Wow.
And then so we got back, we moved the check ride, took a breather. We took took a few days off,
Yeah.
kind of let my brain compress or decompress a little bit.
Yeah.
We came back 2 3 days later, and it was one of the better flights I've ever had.
Yeah.
Right. So we're in accelerated schooling where everything's generally fast paced.
Right.
If you need to, right, take a breath.
Yeah.
Give yourself that time to decompress and come back fully recharged, ready to go.
Do you go to the dispatchers and say, "Hey, I need a day or something," or do you kind of go home and not do other things, or what does that look like to you?
Yeah, talk to your instructor.
Yeah.
We more than happy to help with that, right?
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I'm looking for, and I want to make sure the student's ready to learn.
Right.
Because if we're not, then not much is going to get achieved, right? And it's not going to be as beneficial to the student. Yeah, talk to your instructor, talk to a chief, assistant chief, talk to dispatch. They're more than willing to help out, right? Everybody's willing to help out here.
Can you talk about the FOI and its function, and then about what it says about learning plateaus?
Yeah. So FOI, the fundamentals of instruction, right? It's every CFI's night or CFI candidate's nightmare.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I saw flashbacks from CFI.
That's perfect. Yeah, let's go
As
there.
far as the learning plateau itself, right?
Mhm.
Learning plateau, you're going on through your training, everything's progressing really well. Something comes up and kind of plateaus, right? It
Right.
levels off, gets stagnant. The resolution of that is kind of what I was saying. Go out, do something else, change it up. From the
Mhm.
instructor's standpoint, right? If we see it, we're not just going to sit there and say it's soft field landings that we're struggling with. And it's just a week goes on, we're soft field landings, right? There's not any progress being made. Go do something else,
Mhm.
right? Go work on a different type of landing. Go work on maneuvers for a little while.
Right.
Maneuvers, probably get away from the airport environment. Yourself a breather. Go clean up those maneuvers back up again, and then come back and try to get that soft field again, right? A lot of times, at least in my experience going through as a student, the change of pace and just getting my mind off of it for a minute
Uh-huh.
really helped.
Right, and I'm that way. And I think that's you can call that like a paradigm shift
Hmm.
if something's like not clicking and then it does click, right? I think I just like to say that word because I was reading a book and it was talking about changing perspective, and I was like, oh, that's a really I see what they're talking
Hmm.
about now. Its own paradigm shift. But what I would say is, or what I wanted to ask was, in the FOI specifically, since you mentioned it, and I know that's like that's its own tough point for
Oh yeah.
people who are looking to become a CFI. Is there anything in there though that I know it gets technical kind of, but is there anything in there that was you find enlightening and that you kind of like the concept of something that helped you understand things a little bit better learning to be a CFI?
Yeah. First thing that comes to mind is defense mechanisms. It's one of the things you learn about past V of the FOIs. Um, as a CFI candidate, right? It's something that's hard to understand because you haven't really seen it yet.
Right.
Um, but once you learn it, it's something that I kind of noticed myself going through when I was a student. Kind of see some of these things coming out, and then as a flight instructor, right? You're flying with different students all the time. People are going to react differently. You're going to see different things, and it gives you insight as to what's happening and how you can address that and how you can overcome what's happening.
We have a lot of young people in our program. We have a lot of people from so many different walks of life, but I'm trying to think about when I was younger and finding myself in a position to have to understand people better. I mean, I feel like I've always kind of had an aptitude for that, but I don't think that's everyone's strong suit
Mm-mm.
to kind of understand people from their perspectives too. And it sounds like there's a lot of that in the FOI,
Oh yeah,
especially when it comes to
especially
defense
in
mechanism.
yep.
Yeah. So, uh, is that something that you had to kind of like challenge yourself with?
Yeah, FOIs were definitely challenging, that's for sure. I remember waking up in the morning, it's like my flashcards are right next to me.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
those
was like
things went
that.
everywhere with me. Took me probably a little longer than it should have to fully understand and learn those FOIs, but yeah, it's definitely a challenge.
Oh, well, what makes you kind of go the extra mile and learn the way you did? Like you're talking about flashcards with you everywhere
Mm.
next to your bed, instead of kind of like you did that, but you could have easily felt like overwhelmed by it.
Mm.
Was that like the solution to feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, so as far as bringing them with me ever, it's something I kind of set forth to myself when I started flight school, right? It's an accelerator program. I'm giving everything to it. I didn't really take any breaks going through.
Okay.
But also, I told myself I would never bus anything on the ground.
Okay.
Right. If I was going to bus, whether it's stage check, check ride, whatever it may be, it wasn't going to be on the ground. It was going to be in the air, something that happened, something that I can't control, right?
Mm,
In my mind, on the ground, it was something I could control as far as
mm.
ground knowledge. So I was putting everything in there, making sure that I had that stuff down
It's
for
like
sure.
you're eliminating room for error, it
Yeah,
sounds like.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I mean, in the plane, anything can happen on any given day,
right.
right? But as far as the ground knowledge, being prepared for that, that's something that was well within my
Yeah, that's an
control.
interesting thought process. To me, it sounds like it really an even bigger picture is like you're entering into this very unknown thing for
Hmm.
yourself. I mean, especially like you said earlier, this wasn't something you really thought a lot about for a long period of time, anyways. You got into flying and you didn't know anything. I'm sure you take a high level picture of what's going on, and you're like, I'm going to learn a lot of information, and then I'm also going to learn how to fly a plane.
Yep.
I mean, it's easy to probably separate it into those two things once you get going, and you're like, well, I mean, I don't know anything about flying a plane, but I could, and that's I'm gonna have to learn that as I go. I can't control that,
Hmm.
and so you think to yourself about the controllable variable,
Yeah,
which is, oh, I can learn
exactly.
on the ground the best I
and it,
can. Be a
and
good
it's
student.
easy to separate it, right?
Hmm.
But at the same time, they tie together so much, right?
Okay.
Everything that we're learning on the ground
Mhm.
is going to be applied in the airplane.
I guess I want to ask this for people who are maybe in college or considering college, and then are also interested in flying, and then if it were me on the other side listening, I would be like, well, what's gonna make me any better of a student over here than I would be in college or in high school?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of stuff that'll transfer over, right? As far as ground knowledge,
Mhm.
right? All the same study skills you've always been using, right? Flashcards for me were everything, right?
Right.
I have at home, I have a stack of flashcards that's like this big,
Yeah.
just from all the different ratings. There's a lot of stuff that transfers over with that.
Hmm.
Um, and as far as being different, right? For me, it's motivation.
Hmm.
Um, I know school can be pretty boring, right? But for me, it was the motivation of flying the airplane and getting to keep flying, getting to work flying an airplane, right?
Yeah.
That really kept me going. It's finding that motivation to really drive you and actually do the things that aren't as fun that will help you get to where you want to go.
For anyone who's wondering about whether or not you're gonna have the motivation, if motivation's a problem, well, you have a pretty clear motivation, hopefully, when you begin flight training. So again, if you're interested, we have information in our bio on our websites. I mean, most schools you can call them. You can call anywhere you are and ask questions, and they'll give you some insights. Do you have any recommendations on? Do you watch content really about aviation at all? Do you use the
Yeah,
internet?
yeah. One of the biggest things to watch it's
Yeah.
Stig Shift on YouTube.
Yeah?
He's a maintenance. He's A&P. He does maintenance for American.
Mm,
I think he wears a little GoPro or something.
yeah,
He posts like hour-long videos once a week, but he does. He really dives into like the systems of the airplanes, how things work, and it's a lot more advanced stuff than what we're working with here, right?
yeah.
So it's really interesting to me. Yeah, I watch them like every time they come out.
That's really awesome. And I know multi gets really technical like that. I've sat
Hmm.
in on some classes and it is actually really technical. I find that very interesting now. Well, I'm gonna look up stick shift myself because we also have our AMP school,
Yeah,
and I've been trying to source some ideas and like what other people enjoy. So I'll look into that myself. Well, I appreciate you for joining
yeah,
in
of course.
on this episode with us. If you guys are still listening, I'm assuming that you saw something valuable here. And so, if so, go ahead and leave us a comment saying, "Hey, like I really like X, Y, and Z," so that future listeners can see that timestamp and see what it is that you enjoyed the most. And if you have your own experiences with discovery flights, we always welcome you to share that in the comments. I think that did a lot for me when I first
Mhm.
understood that people take discovery flights. Otherwise, like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you guys on the next episode of Pilots Say What, where we hear what pilots have to say. Thank you for joining.